Good morning. It is Thursday, November 11th, 2021. Welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known live morning breaking news show. And today we have two pressing topics: the calls for some sort of punishment, if not outright removal from Congress, of Republican Rep. Paul Gosar for his animated fantasy attacks on Democratic Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and President Joe Biden. Also, a little bit later, the black eye to HBCUs around the country as Howard University President Wayne Fredericks has dug his feet in and has declined to meet with students who have taken over the Blackburn building now for more than a month. We talked to some students this morning about that. But first, let's bring on the National Newspaper Publishers Association's president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacy Brown. On behalf of the Black Press of America, I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina this morning, getting ready to board a flight back to Washington. Thank you for the headlines, and we thank Karen Carter Richards and all of the publishers of the NNPA. Karen Carter Richards is our distinguished chair, and we represent 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies across the country. And last night we did a special salute to the Wilmington Journal. Maryland Stats, the publishers in the hospital, had several surgeries, so we extend our prayers and best wishes to Maryland Stats. But it was a great celebration last night of the continuation of the Black press in spite of what happened 123 years ago in Wilmington, North Carolina, with the Wilmington Race Massacre that took place on November the 10th, 1898. This is way before the Tulsa, at that time, Stacy, just a short clip, Wilmington not only had a Black Wall Street, the whole city was Black folks doing economic development, the leaders of the city. And there's only been one coup d'etat in American history. That's in Wilmington, North Carolina, on November the 10th, 1898. It's what they tried to do on January the 6th, 2021 in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and you can read, folks, you can read a lot more about that very shortly at blackpressusa.com and many of our member papers around the country. Dr. Chavis, real quick before we get into Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, two things this morning. F.W. de Klerk, the former South African president and Nobel Peace Prize winner and the last leader of apartheid South Africa, has died at the age of 85. We know that de Klerk was credited with freeing Nelson Mandela after 27 years unjustly incarcerated there in South Africa. So F.W. de Klerk has died. And folks, if you really want to see just how different a murder trial is when it involves, or any trial, when it involves people of color, just tune in to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial in Wisconsin and the McMichael family trial in Georgia. Of course, the McMichael brothers and Rowdy Bryant is the folks who killed Ahmaud Arbery. The compassion and leniency in which the judge is showing Rittenhouse, it makes you want to vomit, including threatening to take up a motion to declare a mistrial with prejudice, which means Rittenhouse couldn't be tried again. And the McMichael's father and the son tandem and the Rowdy Bryant down in Georgia who killed Arbery, well, many are already saying these guys are going to walk because of how the case has been handled, how it is currently being handled. So much so that Al Sharpton and Ben Crump are down there in Georgia to watch those proceedings. Again, that's our criminal justice system, folks. We're going to have a lot more on that on this program, and many of our papers, I would dare say all of our papers around the country will be covering both of those trials. Yesterday, Kyle Rittenhouse testimony, in which he sobbed, but there were no tears. He sobbed, but there was no wetness. Give me a break. Let's move on, because I can pontificate on that all morning. Democratic Michigan Congresswoman Frederica Wilson was scheduled to join us this morning, but instead, yesterday we got a chance to talk with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence of Michigan about this situation with Rep. Paul Gosar and his threats to kill Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and President Biden. Let's hear what Representative Lawrence had to say in that interview. Of killing a congresswoman and the President of the United States. Let's hear what Michigan Democratic Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence has to say on the issue. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. Your reaction when you heard that?
For if I wanted to minimize it to the lowest level, it was immature and childish. It was not the the behavior of a statesman, of a person elected to the United States House of Representatives to represent over 7,000 people. The fact that it was this cartoon creating this sense of him being a superhero, it makes you wonder about his maturity as well of his need for recognition. I know right now McCarthy and the leadership are of the Republican Party are looking at censuring those Republican members who voted for the bill for the BIF, which is the bipartisan infrastructure plan. Now, this was an infusion into the United States infrastructure, which has an impact on red states and red communities, as well as blue and those who are independent. It is something for the entire country. And you find that offensive enough to say you're going to take out some form of punishment, stripping them of their duties, but you've been silent on this issue that implies violence, that is immature, and I feel unethical.
Yeah, there is so much to unpack there, Congresswoman, and you're spot on, of course. But this is nothing new with the Republican Party, right? We saw the former president a year plus ago attack members of Congress known as the Squad, that included Representative Ocasio-Cortez, who's now at the center of this situation here. Can you talk about the respect or disrespect, particularly of women of color in Congress?
Well, being a woman of color and being in this space for and watching the intersection of sexism and racism all come together when you put yourself in a position of leadership is clearly an issue that most women of color are familiar with. But let's talk about he included the president of the United States, which, as we all know, is a even higher level of offense. We, as women and women of color, know that the perceived permission to attack, assault, or belittle or try to strip of our powers is something that we deal with constantly. And, we are often labeled, especially Black women, of having an attitude. You get tired of that after a while. It's like zero tolerance. If I even see you getting ready to go down that lane, I'm going to address it. But what we have here is in the position of your power, in your position of influence on many, you stoop to a level that many will be very comfortable with or maybe even want to join you. But we as Congress should not allow that.
Yeah, and Congresswoman Lawrence, again, we thank you so much for joining us. You have been in and around politics for quite a while now. What do you make of the state of politics, regardless of what party you sit with? The state of politics today just seems like this is not my grandfather's politics. This is something new we're seeing, something more dangerous over the last 4+ years, really since Obama was in office. It seems to be that there is so much of this. I want to call it hate politics. I mean, they are going after each other like never before. We've never seen this. Rep. Gosar, that animated video of him taking a sword to Rep. Ocasio-Cortez's neck and then attacking we've never seen that before.
It's so unfortunate. We celebrated the election of a Black president in the United States of America. We celebrated as we felt that it was the coming of age in America when it had racism and all of the things that we have encountered as Black people in America, where we saw that talent was being recognized over the color of our skin. But then we we received Donald Trump, who gave permission, and his actions with the insults to even his members of his own party, sexist comments, where women say, "Oh, that's just shop talk. That's just boys talking." The president was a grown man, and he made comments that we as women confront all the time in our push and accomplishments in the working world. We saw a president that was okay calling out ethnic groups and making a joke out of it, which was just disrespectful. And with his actions, and those who were suppressing or holding back all this time, they felt empowered. And now you see people so comfortable being disrespectful, so comfortable saying something racist or sexist. And we in America, and I want to be very clear about this, we went through this once before in our history where the least of us were under attack. But those with privilege and power stood up and said, "We are not going to tolerate this in our country."
Well, there you have it, Dr. Chavis, the words of Brenda Lawrence, the Congresswoman out of Michigan. Your quick thoughts on that, Dr. Chavis.
Well, we appreciate the leadership of Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, distinguished member of Congress representing Michigan in the Congress of the United States. And I think what she said was right on point. I think that the Congress needs to reprimand, needs to censor, it needs to expel any congressman that plots to kill a fellow member of Congress and certainly threaten the President of the United States. That should not be tolerated.
Yeah, not in the least bit. And obviously, as we talked about before, if that were you or I, we'd be in jail without bail, waiting for trial. That is repulsive, to say the least. But Dr. Chavis, we're going to turn our attention now to the situation at Howard University. We're going to bring on now the NNPA's TikTok manager and Howard University student, Carrington York, another Howard University student, Erica England, and educator and journalist, Sam P.K. Collins, one of the best in the business who've been covering the Howard University Blackburn takeover. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Sam, I know you've been on the ground there. I know this is particularly close to your heart, really. I want you to lead us off here.
First of all, shout out to Erica, Anaya Vines, and the countless other Howard students who have been on the front lines of the protest. I've only been there as somebody documenting the experience. I've done it up close and from afar, just adding additional context. But they've been the ones who have allowed me to pretty much get an insight into what's going on with the Blackburn takeover from day one. My understanding is that the Blackburn takeover is a culmination of attempts by the student body to get President Wayne Fredericks' attention throughout the school year. If you recall, in the Informer newspaper, around the time of the cyber attack, there were other organizations talking about the housing issue as well as issues pertaining to pretty much Frederick not getting their attention, pretty much, or them not getting Frederick's attention. So what happened on October 13th happened because students were just fed up, and they had meetings on their own without administration, but administration was just not getting the message. As we approach the 1 month mark, 30 days, my understanding is that there are some negotiations going on, but at the same time, the university is not really bucking down and getting students what they are demanding. At the same time, as seen in the State of the Union, the State of the University address that President Frederick gave last week, there is some acknowledgement about the issues that are going on. And President Frederick did give some figures about how many rooms on the campus are experiencing mold and fungi. But at the very same time, those figures are debatable, as well as the university's response. One criticism that students have levied against Frederick is that the hypercare program that he boosts is pretty much just a cover for really doing something that's more sustainable. And the issue that is at hand is the same issue that the HU Resist students pretty much brought up in 2018, as well as students from other generations who have protested the administration. But right now, what we are looking at is the longest protest in Howard history. The HU Resist protest, from my understanding, took place about 9 days, but we're going on about a month right now. And that's just because the administration is not meeting students where they want them to meet them at.
Yeah, and Carrington and Erica, I know you have shared experiences and you've discussed this. I want to turn it over to both of you to discuss your position on this. More pointedly, Erica, your position, and Carrington, I know you've been documenting a lot of this as well for the NNPA. Can you two talk about what you guys have shared with each other?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have been covering this situation as it regards housing at the university since Erica held her sit outs, which was a protest demonstration to get the attention of administration when it came to the various students that were experiencing housing issues. And so that was back in August. And since then, I have to agree with Sam in saying that there has been this unified effort to simply get the attention of the administration in the beginning. And now it's clear that not only do we have their attention, we have the nation's attention, but at this very moment, we need demands met. And that's what you'll hear from the student body.
Yeah, Erica, you want to jump in and tell us your experience? I know you've been in those tents that we've seen Howard students sleeping out of.
Yes, Carrington is correct. We have been trying to get the attention of the administration since the beginning of the semester. Excuse me. And it's been to no avail. We had a housing shortage at the beginning of the semester. It's interesting to see the facts and figures that administration or President Frederick is pushing out there, because we as students don't know those facts and figures to be accurate. At the beginning of the semester, and even before the semester started, there were emails that went out that clearly stated that there was limited access to housing. There were emergency housing forms that went out for people that needed housing quickly. There were students who came back to campus who thought that they had housing, and when they arrived were told that, oh, we lost your housing application form, or we don't see you in the system. So there was a shortage, and then the housing that was available, which mostly went to priority students. So by priority, meaning not mostly upperclassmen, there were issues in those dorms, health and safety issues.
And what kind of safety issues we're talking? You said health and safety. Can you specify those reasons?
Yes. So I know a lot of folks have seen the pictures of the mold that's been growing on the walls and on the floors and under people's beds, in their closets. There's been also mushrooms growing in some rooms, coming out of the wall in the showers. There's been infestations in certain areas in dorms. I've seen some videos of like brown water coming out of the sinks in some of the dorms. And it's not even just the dorms. Also in buildings on campus, there's been issues. AC and heating going in and out, water being shut on and off. So there's been a lot of structural issues and infrastructural issues as well.
Yeah, I just want to briefly bring back Dr. Chavis. I know he's at an airport. Dr. Chavis, you know President Fredericks personally. I don't know if you had a chance yet to talk to him about this situation, but he seems, when you talk to him, I know he seems to be a reasonable man. What are your thoughts as to your feeling anyway on President Fredericks, what he might be considering at this point?
Well, first of all, I'm a proud graduate of Howard University, and shout out, a salute to the students for their perseverance. and for raising their grievances. Yes, I do know President Frederick. I plan to ask for a meeting for him as soon as I get back in Washington, D.C. today. I think that the students' grievances are just, and I think the administration needs to give them a fair hearing and resolve. I think the truth of the matter is Howard University is the leading HBCU in the country. And so this is a situation that really needs to be resolved, and it needs to be resolved quickly. So any role I could play behind the scenes on behalf of the Black press of America, I intend to do it, starting with Dr. Frederick today.
Fantastic. Sam, I want you to talk about the black eye that this has given not just Howard, but doesn't that resonate at other HBCUs around the country? Isn't this one of those things where it's a brotherhood, and so when one hurts, we all hurt?
What we're looking at right now is an issue of legacy versus the reality of the HBCU experience. And let it be known that I am not a graduate of an HBCU, but that does not deter me from giving my assessment of what I've been seeing. You know, what I will say is that oftentimes alumni of HBCUs, from what I've been hearing, as well as those who are on campus and those who are administrators, they're often conflicted between protecting the university's legacy and talking about the real deal about what's going on in the university. As one HU alum and faculty member often says, you have the Howard administration and the buildings, and you also have the Howard community. And that in part is part of the reason why you have an organization called Howard Alumni United that sort of is differentiated from the Howard Alumni Association in the sense that those alumni are committed to making sure that Howard University reflects its legacy. Because oftentimes when it comes to Howard University and other HBCUs, you have students who are dedicated to the cause, but still succumb to the pressures of living in dorms that are subpar, that are succumbing to the pressures of, you know, having to go to financial aid every semester and, you know, and pretty much be relegated to poor customer service. These are things that students who are the future, and as a matter of fact, who are the present, should not be succumbing to. And universities, time and time again, you know, HBCUs in particular, but we can say this for pretty much PWIs, they are taking advantage of students by relying on their legacy and charging them a hand and a foot. You know, for people who are taking out loans for an education, charging them hand and a foot pretty much for subpar service. And we can call this a class issue. You know, the race issue, we can argue, you know, is still at hand and we're still working on that. But within our community, we're talking about Black communities, we're talking about class issues where people who have power, people who have, you know, connections and money and access to money are taking advantage of people who want to get money and access and are just coming out in their lives at 18, 19, 20, taking out loans to go to college. And these students are showing that they are breaking that paradigm, and social media has been the great equalizer. So while Howard has had, you know, its talking points, the students have taken to the internet and pretty much shown what they believe or what they know to be the real deal. But to answer your question, Stacy, we're looking at two things: legacy versus reality, and a class issue in which administrators are pretty much, you know, using funds questionably to the detriment of students who are just trying to get their education.
Yeah, and Carrington and Erica, prior to the semester, Howard University made news. First, they renamed one of the their centers after chat with Bozeman. They made 3 high-profile hires. Felicia Rashad was one of them. Ta-Nehisi Coates was the other, and Nicole Hanna, I believe, was the other. I think I said her name right, but. So when with the backdrop of all of that, it seems like it was set up to be a really outstanding year at Howard, but this has marred it all, obviously. But my question really comes down to those 3 major hires. Has any of them reached out to the students or even spoken up about this situation that you know of?
So to my knowledge, I have not heard any of them speak to the situation. I do believe Felicia Rashad has kind of indirectly spoken to the situation when Debbie Allen was present on the campus recently. And from what I saw on, videos online and Twitter and whatnot, there were videos of Debbie Allen clearly in support of the student protesters, which the student body reacted well to. Felicia Rashad, on the other hand, seemed to have some conflicting opinions about what was going on and the student protesters' response, and some critical opinions on it. I'm sure Erica might be able to speak more to that.
Yeah, Erica?
Yes. So, to my knowledge, like Carrington said, there has been some conflicting opinions. I can't say that any of them have directly come out in support of students. I know that I personally have spoken to Nicole Hannah-Jones, but at this time I don't want to speak because I don't know exactly where they all fall on the issue. So maybe that's forthcoming. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. And there's been talk that perhaps the university is just going to wait the students out. It's getting colder. It could be snow in the future, bad weather anyway. How the students have already shown a resolve here, Carrington and Erica. Do they have that resolve to go through the winter?
I think it would be a tremendous misstep if the administration allows this to continue. The demands that we have are they're not luxury items. They're not overzealous. They're basic level demands, things that most students should have access to. Many students have access to safe and clean dorms. And one of the issues that I pointed out to Howard's administration was that a lot of the things that we have been dealing with in this semester are things that should have been taken care of before students came back. They blamed the mold growth and the issues in the dorms on it being like a very cold and wet summer. A very hot and warm summer. And they blamed some of the flooding issues that have happened in the buildings and in the pipes bursting as well on that. And these are things that should have been taken care of before students came back. It would have taken a couple of weeks to go through all the dorms and make sure that they were ready before students came back, but that didn't happen. There was a picture of a pipe under a sink in a student dorm that had a dirty rag tied around the pipe because the pipe was leaking, and they put some Tupperware under it to catch the water. Like, that's not fixing the problem. And then when those problems are happening in multiple dorm rooms, then you have a large, widespread problem. And then you have to rush to start taking care of these issues that should have been taken care of before students came back.
Yeah.
And then to ask for a seat at the table so that we can talk about these issues. One of our demands was that we be reinstated on the board of trustees. That is something very, very basic. A lot of students have a voice on the place that they call home for 4 years or more. And that's one of the conversations that I had with Nicole Hannah-Jones, because if people would remember, before she left her previous university, she was up for tenure. And the reason that her tenure came up for a vote was because the student trustee on the board at UNC Chapel Hill demanded that she have a vote for her tenure. And if that same scenario were to happen at Howard University, that would not happen because we don't have that access to the board. We don't have that vote.
Yeah, our publisher out in Texas, I should say. I always say Houston when I think of Texas, but Texas Metro News, Cheryl Smith says, Howard leadership needs to lead. This is bad, not only for Howard, but all HBCUs. Meet with students and settle this mess. The students' social game is fierce. Erica, tell Channing Hill and to all of you students, stay strong and keep being respectful in your efforts. Sam, I want to give you a last thought on this before I throw it to Dr. Chavis. Sam, what's next here? What can we expect next from this situation?
Well, as my report shows this week in the Informant newspaper, Howard is pretty much on the world stage. So at this point, I see more celebrities, more mavens of the industry coming forward and helping students. Last week, before the State of the University address, faculty, students, alum all converged on campus, both at the Blackburn building and at the A building, just really speaking about the Howard situation in greater context, about grants, the way grants are being used, about financing, about legacy, things of that nature. So I see more information coming out in the coming weeks. I see more solidarity among other HBCUs, as has been the case at Clark Atlanta University. And I also see, students keep pressing on. And who's to say that, Howard University administration won't sit down with these students? I think that given what we're seeing, at some point, they're going to have to buckle under pressure. And that is just what has happened all throughout history. So it's looking good. But I'm pretty sure the students can give a better idea than I can. But from my vantage point, I'm seeing that, the end might be near sooner than we think. But that's only incumbent upon the administration. But the world is watching and the pressure is increasing.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Linda Yvette Walters, says necessities like clean dorms should be a given. In no way should students be exposed to mold, infestations, broken pipes, and questionable water. Who's in charge of this? Come on, people. These are our sons, daughters, nieces, and nephews. Carrington, I know we're going to see a lot more on TikTok from you at NNPA Black Press on this. Just real quick, Carrington, just 30 seconds, your closing thought on this, Carrington.
Well, I think it's time for Howard to take action, and I hope, as both a student and a reporter, that they are able to change the narrative in an ethical way. I know there's been question on ethical reporting from the Hilltop, which is Howard University's student newspaper, on whether or not they are reporting the truths or if they're being influenced by the president. And I hope that he is more active in his statements and what he says he will commit to do, and he is not afraid to be in person with the students and speak to them directly, which I know he's shown some avoidance towards doing in the beginning. So I hope that administration is embarrassed enough at what's going on that some action is taken very soon.
Thanks, Carrington. And Erica, 30 seconds, your final thoughts this morning?
I would say that the ball is in the court of administration. It is now day 30, I think. Inside, a lot of us have lost count of how many days have gone by, but I think it's officially day 30. And administration has had the power to fix this all along. We are students. We should not have to fix the issues that administration and the board are in charge of fixing. We are students. We want to get back to school. The end of the semester is coming up. Finals are coming up. And we want to give back the responsibility of our care to the people that are supposed to be caring for us.
Dr. Chavis, we just heard from 3 wonderful examples of our future. Your closing thought?
Well, I want to thank them for their leadership. Thank you. We will make sure that the Black press continues to cover this area. I'm going to meet with President Frederick, and I agree with Eric that ball is in their court, and we hopefully get this matter settled today. God bless you, and thank you for being on the Black Press.
Absolutely. Now, Black fact of the day. While Rosa Parks is credited with helping to spark the civil rights movement when she refused to give up her public bus seat to a white man in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, inspiring the Montgomery bus boycott, the lesser-known Claudette Colvin was arrested 9 months before for not giving up her seat on the bus to a white passenger. Colvin was arrested and eventually put on indefinite probation. Though Colvin's courageous act occurred 9 months before Rosa Parks' similar protests, the NAACP chose to use the 42-year-old Parks, the civil rights activist, as the public face of the Montgomery bus boycott, as they believed an unwed mother, Colvin, who became pregnant when she was 16, would not be the best face for the movement. Colvin felt slighted, but later joined 3 other women, Mary Louise Smith, Oriella Browder, and Susan McDonald, as the plaintiffs in Browder versus Gale, in the case that ultimately overturned bus segregation in Alabama. Colvin rarely talked about her heroic actions until the 1990s, when she said, "I'd like my grandchildren to be able to see that their grandmother stood up for something a long time ago." Our Black fact of today. I think it was a great one too, Miss Colvin. Thank you everybody for watching. Tomorrow, we have a very special program tomorrow. Please tune in as the Black and Missing Foundation, Derica and Natalie Wilson joins us with a family who lost their child that was kidnapped. And they are all a part of a new HBO special that's coming up later this month. We'll have some footage for you. We're going to talk to them. It'll be a great conversation. Tune in. Everybody stay safe, stay well, and thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.